Serving us tonight. But has any lucky bastard ever been serviced by you before, baby? Or are you still untouched, waiting for a real man to come and take care of that? In the dazzling crystal chandelier light of the charity gala in Koreatown, Los Angeles, the smooth, arrogant voice of Min-jun, Daniel Kang's trusted lieutenant, rang out near the VIP table corner, just loud enough for those around to hear clearly. That vulgar, crude remark hung in the air, accompanied by a contemptuous smirk and lustful eyes that swept from head to toe over Jasmine Carter, the thin black waitress holding a silver tray of drinks with hands trembling slightly from hunger and exhaustion. Jasmine froze solid, the tray tilting faintly, her beautiful but weary face flushing with shame and fear. She lowered her head, her voice soft and almost a whisper. "No one special, sir. Just trying to get by." Min-jun laughed louder, his tone growing even more shameless. "Really? A hot piece like you and no one's taken care of it yet? Tell the truth, are you still waiting for some guy with real guts?" At that exact moment, from the far end of the room, a premium whiskey glass shattered and a palm clenched so tight the knuckles went white. Daniel Kang, the boss of the Hanbit Syndicate, the man who had never lost his composure in the face of any threat, charged through the crowd like a storm, his dark eyes blazing with rage and something far more intense, insane possessiveness. He stopped right in front of Min-jun, his voice so cold it silenced the entire room. "Apologize to her, right now." And from that moment on, everything began to change forever. Before we dive into this chilling and mysterious story, please remember to subscribe to the channel Crimson Romance Stories and like this video. Every subscription, like, and share from you is a huge spiritual gift and an incredibly profound source of motivation for the channel's growth, so we can continue bringing wonderful videos every day to everyone. There would be no greater joy than receiving your love and support through the comments you leave right below this video. Comments sharing your emotions or telling us which province or city you're living and working in while listening to this story. Alright, let's continue together and immerse ourselves in this amazing, captivating story that's filled with deep emotions. I stood at the edge of the grand ballroom in the heart of Koreatown, Los Angeles, watching the charity gala unfold like a carefully choreographed performance. The event was for Korean American community scholarships, something I funded generously every year through the Hanbit Foundation. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over tables draped in white linen, filled with successful businessmen, community leaders, and their families, all part of the tight-knit world I had built from nothing. On the surface, it was philanthropy. Beneath it, it was power. My power. I am Daniel Kang, though most call me Dae-hyun in private circles where respect still matters. At 36, with fair skin that betrays my Korean roots, and a face that magazines once called strikingly handsome, I have everything a man could want. Skyscrapers downtown, luxury cars that purr through the streets, a penthouse overlooking the city lights, and the unwavering loyalty of men who fear me as much as they serve me. The Hanbit Syndicate answers to me alone now that Elder Park has stepped back. We control real estate, protection, imports, everything that keeps Koreatown thriving under my watchful eye. But inside, I am hollow, profoundly lonely. The guilt gnaws at me relentlessly, a violent turmoil that wakes me in the dead of night. Every decision I make in this world leaves blood on my hands, even if it's never literal anymore. I tell myself it's for family, for legacy, for the community my parents sacrificed everything to join when they immigrated. Yet the inner conflict rages, a fierce storm of regret and isolation that no amount of wealth can quiet. Tonight, I wore a tailored black suit, standing apart as always, sipping whiskey from a crystal glass. My eyes, however, kept drifting to her, Jasmine Carter. She was part of the temporary serving staff, moving gracefully between tables with trays of appetizers and drinks. I had arranged for her agency, one I quietly own, to hire her months ago, after learning about her connection to my past. She was 24, an African-American woman raising her 3-year-old son, Micah, alone in the harsh edges of South Los Angeles. Seeing her here, in my world, stirred something dangerous in me. She was beautiful in a raw, unpolished way, dark skin glowing under the lights, curly hair pulled back practically, eyes that held a quiet strength despite the exhaustion etched into her features. But her poverty was heartbreaking, a brutal contrast to the opulence around us. I knew it intimately from the reports. Nights without heat in a cramped apartment, skipping meals to feed Micah, working double shifts as a home care aide while studying nursing online during stolen moments. Emaciated from constant hunger, sleep-deprived with dark circles under her eyes, battered by cold winds walking to bus stops, humiliated by overdue bills and judgmental glances. She lived on the absolute edge of survival, while I dined on caviar and drove a Rolls-Royce. The injustice of it tore at me, amplifying my guilt. Why had fate spared me and crushed her? My lieutenant Min-jun noticed her too. He was charismatic, always the one to lighten tense rooms with his easy smile. He had pulled her aside near a corner table, offering her a glass of soju from the VIP bottles. I watched from afar, my grip tightening on my glass as their conversation grew animated. Min-jun leaned in, his voice carrying just enough in the lull between speeches. He flashed that cocky grin and said, low and teasing, "Serving us tonight, but who's been served by you before, darling? Or has some lucky bastard already gotten there?" The words were crude, wrapped in playful arrogance, the kind of remark that passed among my men when alcohol loosened tongues. But hearing it directed at her sliced through me like a blade. My heart slammed against my ribs, a surge of jealousy so violent it blurred the edges of my vision. How dare he speak to her like that? She was not a conquest, not a joke. She was everything I had been watching from the shadows, everything that had begun to fill the hollow places inside me. Jasmine froze for a heartbeat, tray trembling slightly in her hands. Confusion and humiliation flickered across her face, then a cautious, fearful caution as she realized how many eyes had turned. Her voice came out soft, restrained, almost timid, the tone of someone who had learned long ago to navigate power without offending it. "No one special, sir, just trying to get by." Min-jun laughed, emboldened. "Come on, a woman like you, tell me honestly, still waiting for the right one to take care of that?" The question hung invasive and cruel, and in that instant the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. I felt the storm before I moved, possessiveness, guilt, and something far more dangerous crashing together. My glass cracked in my hand, whiskey spilling over my fingers unnoticed. This fierce, burning affection I had carried in silence for months exploded into something unstoppable. Love, immediate, passionate, overwhelming, tore through the walls I had built around my fractured heart. I wanted to shield her from every cruelty, every cold night, every skipped meal. I wanted to pull her into the safety of my world and never let the injustice touch her again. Fueled by that single sip of soju and the bone-deep weariness that sometimes made her reckless, Jasmine lifted her chin just slightly. Her reply was barely above a whisper, yet it carried like a gunshot in the sudden hush. "Maybe not for long. Ask me again tomorrow." Nearby conversations stuttered to a halt. Heads turned, and something inside me ruptured completely. The loneliness I had carried for years cracked wide open, flooded by a desperate, all-consuming need to protect her, to claim her, to love her with every shadowed piece of my soul. I was across the room in seconds, my presence darkening the space around them. Min-jun's amusement died instantly when he saw my face. Jasmine looked up at me, eyes wide with shock and dread, a soft gasp escaping her lips. She swayed, the tray tilting dangerously as disorientation and fear washed over her. Poverty's harsh edges colliding violently with the raw dominance radiating from me. In that moment, as unease and cautious curiosity warred in her exhausted gaze, I knew I would burn the world down before I let anyone hurt her again. Even if the greatest threat to her peace was the broken, dangerous man now standing between her and every cruelty fate had thrown at her. I crossed the ballroom in a handful of strides, the crowd parting instinctively as it always did when my mood turned dark. The air felt thick, charged, like the moment before a storm breaks over downtown Los Angeles. My heart was hammering so violently I could feel it in my throat. a raw, animal surge of possessiveness that terrified me as much as it consumed me. I, Daniel Kang, the man who had stared down federal indictments and rival crews without flinching, was unraveling over a single, careless remark. Min-jun straightened the instant he saw me, his cocky grin evaporating. He knew that look on my face. Everyone in the Handbit syndicate knew it. I stopped close enough that he had to tilt his head back slightly to meet my eyes. My voice came out low, controlled, but laced with an edge sharp enough to cut glass. Apologize. Now. The words hung in the sudden silence. Crystal glasses stopped halfway to lips. Conversations died mid-sentence. Min-jun swallowed, the playful bravado draining from his face. He turned to Jasmine, bowing his head just enough to show deference without losing face entirely. "I'm sorry, Miss Carter. That was out of line. I meant no disrespect." His tone was sincere enough for the room to relax a fraction, but it did nothing to cool the fire roaring inside me. I could not tear my gaze away from her. Jasmine stood frozen, the silver tray trembling in her slender hands. Her dark eyes, exhausted, wary, impossibly deep, met mine for the first time up close. Shock rippled across her features, followed by a wave of confusion so profound it made her sway. The tray tilted. A flute of champagne slid and shattered on the marble floor. The sharp crack echoed like a gunshot. She flinched as if struck, her breath catching in a soft, frightened gasp. I'm so sorry, sir," she whispered, voice small and trembling, the respectful timbre of someone who had learned early that powerful men could crush lives with a word. She dropped to her knees instantly, reaching for the broken pieces with shaking fingers, heedless of the shards that could cut her skin. That single motion, kneeling in humiliation among the wealthy, while shards glittered around her like fallen stars, tore something open inside my chest. I crouched beside her before I could think, my hand closing gently but firmly around her wrist to stop her. Her skin was cold, far too cold for a heated ballroom, and I felt the faint tremor running through her. Emaciated from months of choosing between groceries and rent, sleep-deprived from night shifts and caring for Micah, she looked as though a strong wind could knock her over. The brutal gap between us, my custom Italian suit worth more than her yearly earnings, my untouched plate of Wagyu sliders nearby, while she had likely not eaten since yesterday, slammed into me with cruel force. Guilt and remorse twisted like knives. How had I let her suffer this long under my supposed protection? "Don't," I said quietly, my voice rougher than I intended. "Leave it." She looked up at me then, really looked, and the fear in her eyes shifted into something more complicated. Dread mingled with cautious curiosity, as if she could not reconcile the dangerous man looming over her with the gentleness in my touch. Her lips parted, but no sound came. Dizziness washed over her face. She swayed again, and I tightened my grip to steady her. The contact sent a jolt through me, electric and devastating. That fierce, burning love I had felt ignite moments ago now surged into an inferno. I wanted to pull her against me, shield her from every cold night, every skipped meal, every humiliating moment the world had forced upon her. Staff appeared instantly to clean the glass. I rose, bringing her up with me, my hand lingering at her elbow longer than necessary. The room watched, whispers already starting. Perception was everything in my world, and I had just marked her publicly in a way that could not be undone. Min-jun cleared his throat, trying to salvage the moment. "Boss, I didn't mean..." "Enough." I cut him off without looking away from her. My tone carried the finality that made grown men pale. Min-jun bowed slightly and retreated, melting into the crowd. I should have felt satisfaction, but all I felt was the violent turmoil inside me growing louder. I had humiliated my own lieutenant in front of the entire community to protect a woman most here would see as insignificant, and I would do it again in a heartbeat. Jasmine's breathing was shallow, rapid. Shock had drained the color from her face, leaving her looking even more fragile. "Sir, Mr. Kang," she whispered, using my name with the careful respect of someone addressing a figure far above her station. "I can clean it myself. Please, I need this job." The plea in her voice, soft, restrained, laced with the terror of a single mother who could not afford to lose even one night's pay, ripped through me. Tears pricked at the edges of my vision, a weakness I had not allowed in years. I, who had built an empire on ruthlessness, was crumbling because this woman feared losing a catering shift. "You're not losing anything," I said, the words coming out fiercer than intended. I softened my tone, forcing calm into my voice. "The tray, the glass, it's nothing. Stay on your feet tonight." Her eyes searched mine, confusion deepening into disorientation. She had expected anger, dismissal, perhaps even termination. Instead, she found something she could not name in my gaze. Intensity, protectiveness, a raw emotion that frightened her as much as it bewildered her. She pulled her elbow from my grasp gently, as if afraid to offend, and took a small step back. The loss of contact felt like a physical ache. "Thank you, sir," she murmured, voice barely audible over the resumed hum of conversation. Then, quieter still, "I don't understand why you—" She trailed off, unable to finish. Neither did I, not fully. All I knew was that the loneliness I had carried for decades had cracked wide open the moment Min-jun's words threatened her dignity. In its place rushed this overwhelming, passionate attachment, an explosive love that terrified me with its suddenness and depth. Across the room, Elder Park caught my eye. The retired founder of Hanbit watched with quiet understanding, a faint nod acknowledging what had just shifted irrevocably. He knew the debt I carried, the night 20 years ago when Jasmine's mother, a trauma nurse working a double shift in a county hospital, had saved my life after a street ambush by the Black Dragons. She had hidden me in a supply closet, treated my wounds off record, and lied to police when they came searching. On her deathbed 5 years ago, she had asked Elder Park to watch over her daughter if she ever needed help in Los Angeles. I had honored that promise from the shadows, arranging home care assignments that paid slightly better, ensuring Micah's daycare received anonymous scholarships. But tonight, the promise had transformed into something personal, something that could destroy us both. Jasmine turned to resume her duties, but her steps were unsteady. I watched her weave through the crowd, tray held high, shoulders squared despite the exhaustion and humiliation weighing her down. Every forced smile she offered a guest felt like a dagger to my heart. The injustice of it, the way the world crushed the kindest souls, while men like me thrived in darkness, fed the remorse that already gnawed at me nightly. I retreated to the shadowed edge of the ballroom, whiskey forgotten. My hand still tingled where I had touched her arm. The inner conflict raged harder than ever. I was a man steeped in moral compromises, yet I burned to give her every comfort my wealth could buy. I was dangerous, yet I wanted nothing more than to be her safety. The guilt of my life's choices collided violently with this new, fierce love, leaving me fractured and raw. Minutes later, I saw her slip through a side door toward the service corridor, likely seeking a moment to breathe. Without conscious decision, I followed. The corridor was quieter, lined with staff bustling between kitchen and ballroom. Jasmine leaned against a wall near the exit, head bowed, breathing deeply as if fighting tears. The fluorescent light overhead cast harsh shadows, highlighting the sharp angles of her collarbones, the hollows beneath her eyes. My chest tightened painfully. She sensed my approach and straightened instantly, fear flashing across her face before she masked it with cautious respect. "Mr. Kang," she said softly, voice trembling. "Did I do something else wrong?" The question, spoken with such genuine worry from someone who had endured so much unfairness, nearly undid me. I stopped a respectful distance away, hands visible, trying not to loom despite my height. "No," I said, my voice low. "You did nothing wrong. Ever." Her brow furrowed in deeper confusion, a wave of dizziness making her reach for the wall again. I stepped forward instinctively, ready to catch her if she fell. She flinched at the movement, then stilled, curiosity overriding fear for a fleeting moment. "Then why?" she swallowed. "Why are you being kind to me?" The honesty in her question, the raw vulnerability, struck me like a physical blow. Tears threatened again, mine this time. I, who had not cried since childhood, felt my composure fracturing. "Because you deserve kindness," I answered, the words rough with emotion. "More than this world has given you." She stared at me, emotions shifting rapidly across her face, shock, disbelief, a flicker of desperate hope quickly buried under years of learned distrust. Her lips parted, but no words came. Instead, tears welled and spilled over, silent tracks down her cheeks. She turned away quickly, wiping them with the back of her hand, humiliated by her own weakness in front of a man like me. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I don't usually. I'm just tired." The apology, for crying, for being human, shattered what remained of my restraint. I pulled a silk handkerchief from my pocket and offered it without stepping closer. She hesitated, then took it with trembling fingers, murmuring a timid thank you. In that quiet corridor, surrounded by the distant clatter of dishes and laughter from a world she served but could not enter, something irrevocable passed between us. My love, fierce, immediate, all-consuming, solidified into a vow I felt in my bones. I would protect her. I would pull her from the edge of survival into safety, whatever the cost to my empire or my soul. And as she dabbed her eyes, steeling herself to return to the ballroom, I knew the real danger had only just begun. Not from rivals or federal agents, but from the violent, passionate storm she had unleashed in the heart of a man who had long believed himself beyond redemption. I left the service corridor with my heart still pounding, the silk handkerchief now folded in my pocket like a secret I could not bear to part with. Jasmine had returned to the ballroom, head held high despite the fresh tears she had wiped away, resuming her duties as if nothing had shattered inside her. I watched from the shadows, unable to pull myself away, the fierce love burning hotter with every tray she balanced, every forced smile she offered. The remorse that had haunted me for years now screamed louder than ever. How had I, with all my wealth and influence, allowed her to suffer so long? The gala continued around me in a blur of laughter and clinking glasses, but I felt detached, as if the opulent room belonged to someone else's life. My empire, skyscrapers that pierced the Los Angeles skyline, fleets of luxury vehicles, private security details that shadowed my every move, felt suddenly hollow. What good was power if it could not shield one woman and her child from the cruel edges of the world? Elder Park found me near the balcony doors, his silver hair catching the chandelier light. At 78, he moved with the quiet authority that had built Handbit from street-level protection rackets into the sophisticated network it was today. He had been my mentor, my surrogate father after my own parents passed, and the only man alive who knew every dark corner of my soul. Dae-hyun, he said softly, using my Korean name in that paternal tone that always cut through my defenses. "Come, we need to speak." I followed him to a private lounge overlooking Koreatown's neon glow, the door closing behind us with a soft click that sealed us from the party's noise. The room was appointed with leather armchairs and a low teak table, my personal retreat during events like this. Elder Park poured 2 glasses of barley tea from a thermos he always carried, a habit from the old country that grounded him amid American excess. He handed me one, his sharp eyes studying my face. "The girl, Jasmine Carter. You marked her tonight in front of everyone." I nodded, throat tight. There was no point denying it. Min-jun crossed the line. "More than that," he replied, settling into a chair. "You looked ready to end him. For her." The words hung heavy. I sipped the tea, the warm, nutty flavor doing nothing to ease the turmoil inside me. Guilt and love warred violently. Guilt for the life I led, love for a woman who deserved far better than a man like me. Elder Park leaned forward, voice lowering. "It's time she knows the truth, the debt we owe." My pulse quickened. I had dreaded this moment, yet craved it. For months I had watched over Jasmine from afar, arranging her home care assignments with elderly Korean clients who paid generously, ensuring anonymous aid reached Micah's daycare. But direct involvement, that risked pulling her into my shadowed world. "Bring her here," he said, decision made. Now. I hesitated only a heartbeat before stepping into the corridor and signaling one of my men. Minutes later, Jasmine appeared at the lounge door, escorted but not restrained. She looked small in the doorway, tray finally set aside, her server's apron slightly askew. Exhaustion lined her face. The dark circles under her eyes spoke of sleepless nights caring for Micah through fevers, of cold winds whipping through cracked apartment windows as she walked home from late shifts. Her frame was painfully thin, emaciation from choosing formula over food, from hunger that gnawed constantly while she smiled for tips. "Mr. Kang," she said timidly, voice soft and respectful, eyes darting between me and Elder Park with growing unease. Is something wrong?" "Come in, child," Elder Park said gently, gesturing to a chair. "Sit, you're not in trouble." She entered cautiously, perching on the edge of the seat as if ready to bolt. Fear flickered in her eyes, mingled with confusion. Her hands twisted in her lap, knuckles pale. I remained standing, unable to sit while she looked so fragile. Elder Park spoke first, his tone kind but direct. "Miss Carter, 20 years ago, your mother worked as a trauma nurse at County Hospital. One night, a young man, badly injured from a street conflict, was brought in. Rivals were hunting him. Police were involved. Your mother hid that young man in a supply closet, treated his wounds without recording them, and lied to protect him when questions came." Jasmine's breath caught. Her eyes widened, shock rippling across her features like waves on a disturbed pond. "My mama, she never talked about work, said some things were better left unsaid." "She saved my life," I said quietly, the words scraping my throat raw. The memory flooded back, the pain of gunshot wounds, the terror of footsteps in the hallway, the quiet strength of a nurse who risked everything for a stranger. I was that young man. Disorientation hit her visibly. She swayed in the chair, one hand pressing to her chest as if to steady her heart. She saved you?" Her voice cracked, soft and trembling. Tears welled instantly, spilling over without permission. "She died when I was 19. Cancer. I didn't know." Elder Park continued, voice steady. "On her deathbed, she contacted me. Asked that if her daughter ever needed help in Los Angeles, we watch over her. Honor the debt." Jasmine's tears fell faster now, silent and heartbreaking. The weight of it, learning her mother's secret act of mercy had tied her fate to men like us, seemed to crush her further. She looked at me with a mix of dread, gratitude, and deep confusion, emotions shifting so rapidly her face paled. Dizziness made her grip the chair arms. I moved instinctively closer, ready to catch her. "All this time," she whispered, voice barely audible. "The better jobs, the daycare help, it was you." I nodded, guilt surging anew. From the shadows, I arranged the home care assignments, the aid, but tonight, my voice roughened. Tonight changed everything. She stared at me, curiosity breaking through the fear. "Why tell me now?" "Because I can't stay in the shadows anymore," I wanted to say. "Because I love you with a fierceness that terrifies me. Because seeing you kneel for broken glass tonight broke something irreversible inside me." Elder Park answered instead. "Because Dae-hyun has claimed you publicly. Word will spread. In our world, that means protection, but also visibility. You deserve to know why." Protection, the word landed heavily. Jasmine's hands trembled harder. The injustice of her life, the relentless cruelty of poverty, of raising Micah alone after his father vanished, of cold nights huddled under thin blankets while bills piled up, crashed against this sudden revelation of safety from an unlikely source. Emotional numbness seemed to settle over her. Her tears slowed, leaving her looking lost, adrift. "I don't understand," she said finally, voice small and restrained. "Men like you, why would you care about someone like me?" The question pierced me deeper than any rival's threat ever could. I knelt before her chair, Daniel Kang, who knelt for no one, bringing us eye level. Her breath hitched in fear, then curiosity as I took her cold hands gently in mine. "Because your mother gave me a second chance when I deserved none," I said, voice thick with emotion. "And because you carry her light. Your kindness, your strength despite everything the world has taken from you. It's more than I deserve to witness." Her eyes searched mine, shock giving way to something softer, more dangerous. The burning love inside me surged again, overwhelming and passionate, anchoring me to this moment. I wanted to promise her everything: warmth, safety, a life without hunger or fear. But outside, the night held threats. My phone buzzed, a message from security. Black Dragon scouts spotted near the venue, likely drawn by whispers already circulating about my display with Jasmine. Rivals sensing weakness or opportunity. I stood, inner turmoil raging. "You should go home tonight," I told her. "My driver will take you, but tomorrow, we talk more, safely." She rose unsteadily, still dazed. Elder Park pressed an envelope into her hand. Tonight's pay doubled, with extra for Micah. Her eyes widened at the amount, fresh tears threatening from the sheer relief of it easing 1 month's rent worry. As she left, escorted to a waiting black SUV that would glide through streets she usually walked in the cold, I stood at the window watching the taillights disappear into Koreatown's neon haze. The remorse inside me intensified. A violent storm of guilt for dragging her closer to my darkness, mingled with fierce determination to shield her from it. The debt was revealed, but the real payment had only begun. And whatever cruel fate waited in the shadows, I would face it. For her. For the love that had exploded into my fractured heart with unstoppable force. The gala wound down below us, voices fading into muffled echoes as Elder Park quietly excused himself, leaving Jasmine and me alone in the private lounge. He gave me a knowing look, one that carried decades of understanding, before closing the door softly behind him. The click of the latch sounded final, sealing us into a moment I had both dreaded and craved for months. Jasmine remained perched on the edge of the leather chair, the envelope of money still clutched in her lap like a lifeline. Her breathing was shallow, uneven, as the revelation settled over her like a sudden storm. I could see the emotions shifting across her face in rapid waves, shock giving way to deep confusion, then to a cautious curiosity that made her dark eyes lift to mine. She swayed slightly, dizziness evident in the way she gripped the armrest, and I fought the urge to reach for her again. I opened the balcony doors instead, letting the cool Los Angeles night air drift in. The rooftop terrace beyond was private, my personal escape during these events, with a low glass railing offering an uninterrupted view of Koreatown's neon signs flickering below. The city stretched out like a glittering sea, downtown skyscrapers piercing the haze in the distance. It was a view worth millions, one I had earned through choices that still haunted my dreams. "Come," I said gently, gesturing toward the open doors. "Some fresh air might help." She hesitated, fear flickering in her eyes, the instinctive wariness of someone who had learned that powerful men rarely offered kindness without price. But exhaustion and disorientation won out. She rose unsteadily, smoothing her server's apron with trembling hands, and followed me onto the terrace. The night breeze carried the faint scent of street food from below, grilled meats and kimchi from late-night vendors, mingled with the sharper exhaust of passing cars. Jasmine wrapped her arms around herself, shivering despite the mild temperature. Her thin frame spoke volumes. Nights spent in drafty apartments with heat shut off for unpaid bills. Cold winds cutting through threadbare coats on long walks home. I shrugged off my suit jacket without thinking and draped it over her shoulders. The fabric swallowed her, expensive wool against her worn uniform, another brutal reminder of the chasm between our worlds. She startled at the gesture, looking up at me with wide eyes. "Mr. Kang, I can't." "Daniel," I corrected softly, the name feeling intimate on my tongue. "Please." Her lips parted in surprise, a soft gasp escaping. No one called me Daniel in public. It was always Mr. Kang or boss. But hearing it from her felt right, necessary. She pulled the jacket tighter, the warmth clearly foreign after so many cold nights, and murmured a timid thank you. We stood in silence for a long moment, the city humming below us. I leaned against the railing, giving her space, though every instinct screamed to close the distance. The inner turmoil inside me had reached a fever pitch, guilt for the shadows I lived in, remorse for dragging her closer to them, and that fierce, burning love that refused to be contained any longer. I arranged everything from a distance, I began, voice low, staring out at the lights to avoid overwhelming her. The home care jobs with elderly clients who paid better, the anonymous donations to Micah's daycare, the scholarship applications that suddenly got approved for your nursing program. I turned to face her then, meeting her gaze directly. All of it was me, honoring the debt to your mother. Her breath hitched, fresh tears welling. She swayed again, one hand reaching for the railing as dizziness washed over her. I stepped closer instinctively, steadying her elbow. She didn't pull away this time, though fear and confusion warred in her expression. "Why?" she whispered, voice restrained and respectful, yet laced with pain. "Why would someone like you care about someone like me?" The question tore at me. Someone like me, a man whose wealth bought penthouses and private jets, whose word could make or break businesses in Koreatown. Someone like her, a woman crushed by irrational injustice, working herself to emaciation to keep her son fed, facing eviction notices and utility shutoffs while I dined on meals that cost more than her weekly grocery budget. "Because your mother didn't just save my life," I said, the words scraping raw from my throat. "She gave me hope when I had none. And because..." I paused, the confession burning on my tongue. The love surged again, overwhelming and passionate, anchoring me to this fragile woman who had unknowingly become my salvation. "Because I've been watching you for months," I continued, voice roughening, "not just to fulfill a debt, but because you're extraordinary. The way you care for those elderly clients with genuine kindness, even when you're exhausted. The way you sing softly to Micah over the phone during breaks, making him laugh despite everything. Your strength, Jasmine. Your light in a world that keeps trying to dim it." Her eyes widened in shock, tears spilling freely now. Emotional rupture hit her visibly, chest heaving with silent sobs, body trembling as years of crushing poverty, of cruel misfortune like medical bills that bankrupted her after her mother's death, of raising a child alone while the system offered only scraps, collided with this sudden, impossible affection from a man whose world she could barely comprehend. I don't understand," she managed, voice breaking. Disorientation made her grip the railing harder. Numbness seemed to settle over her features, as if her mind couldn't process the shift from despair to this tentative safety. I closed the small distance between us, careful not to crowd her, but unable to stay apart. "I've fought it," I admitted, the inner conflict spilling out. "Told myself I had no right. I'm not a good man, Jasmine. My hands aren't clean. The power I have comes with shadows you can't imagine. But watching you struggle alone, it broke something in me. The loneliness I've carried for years, the guilt that wakes me every night, it all cracked open tonight when Min-jun spoke to you like that." Her gaze searched mine, curiosity deepening amid the fear. "You protected me, in front of everyone." "I'd do it again," I said fiercely. "I'd burn everything to keep you safe." The words hung between us, heavy with promise. She swayed toward me unconsciously, drawn by the warmth of my jacket, by the intensity in my voice. I caught her gently, one arm around her waist to steady her. The contact was electric, her cold fingers clutching my shirt, my heart pounding against her cheek as she leaned into me for balance. In that moment, on the rooftop overlooking a city that had given me everything and her almost nothing, the love I felt became undeniable. Fierce, immediate, all-consuming. It terrified me with its power, this attachment to a woman who deserved far better than the darkness I carried. But as she looked up at me, tears drying on her cheeks, something shifted in her eyes too, a flicker of cautious hope breaking through the numbness. The brutal contrast of our lives, my dominance and wealth against her heartbreaking deprivation, made the tenderness of this moment almost unbearable. "I don't know what this means," she whispered softly, voice timid but steadying. "For me, for Micah, it means you're not alone anymore," I said, the vow settling deep in my bones. Whatever comes next. Below us, headlights flashed, my security signaling trouble. Black Dragon vehicles circling the block, word of my public claim already spreading. Tension rippled through me, the danger escalating just as my heart opened widest. I guided her back inside gently, the rooftop confession lingering like a promise neither of us could yet fully grasp. The remorse inside me intensified, knowing I had pulled her closer to risk, but the passionate love anchoring me refused to let go. For the first time in decades, the fractured man inside me felt something dangerously close to whole, and I would face any storm to keep it. The rooftop terrace felt suspended above the world, the city's restless hum a distant murmur below us. Jasmine stood close, closer than prudence allowed, my suit jacket still draped over her slender shoulders, swallowing her frame in luxury she had never known. The breeze tugged at loose curls around her face, and in the neon glow from Koreatown signs, her dark skin took on a soft, ethereal warmth. She was shivering, not from cold now, but from the emotional storm raging inside her. I had just laid my soul bare, the months of silent watching, the arranged jobs, the fierce protectiveness that had nothing to do with duty, and everything to do with a love that had seized me without warning. The confession hung between us, raw and vulnerable, stripping away the armor I had worn for decades. Jasmine's eyes, exhausted, wary, impossibly deep, searched mine. Shock lingered there, mingled with cautious curiosity and something new, something that made my pulse thunder. Tears had dried on her cheeks, leaving faint tracks that caught the light. Her breathing was shallow, rapid, as if the air itself had grown too thick. She swayed slightly, dizziness returning in the wake of revelations that upended her fragile reality. "Daniel," she whispered, testing my name for the first time. The sound of it in her soft, restrained voice, timid yet laced with wonder, sent a jolt through me. No one spoke my name like that. Not with reverence born of survival, not with the quiet respect of someone addressing a figure so far above her station. I stepped closer without thinking, drawn by an invisible force. The distance between us shrank to inches. I could smell the faint trace of kitchen soap on her skin, mixed with the exhaustion of a double shift, the cold winds she had walked through to get here. My wealth, private helicopters waiting on rooftops, security details that could mobilize city blocks, felt obscene in the face of her deprivation. Guilt twisted violently inside me, remorse for every night she had gone hungry while I slept in silk sheets. "You don't have to be afraid of me," I said, voice rough with emotion. "Not ever." Her lips parted, a soft gasp escaping. Fear flickered, then curiosity won. She lifted one hand hesitantly, fingers brushing the lapel of my shirt as if testing whether I was real. The touch, light, trembling, ignited something primal. The inner turmoil that had gnawed at me for years reached a breaking point. Loneliness, guilt, and this overwhelming, passionate love collided in a storm I could no longer contain. I cupped her face gently, thumbs tracing the hollows beneath her eyes. Marks of sleepless nights caring for Micah, of hunger that left her emaciated and fragile. She froze, breath catching in dread, then leaned into my palm almost unconsciously, drawn to the warmth after so much cold. Her eyes fluttered closed for a heartbeat, emotional numbness giving way to a desperate need she could not name. When her lashes lifted again, the caution had cracked. Curiosity burned brighter, mingled with a flicker of hope that broke my heart. In that instant, the fierce love anchoring me surged beyond control. I leaned in slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. Our lips met, soft at first, careful, as if I feared she might shatter. But the moment her mouth yielded beneath mine, restraint shattered. The kiss deepened, hungry and desperate, weeks, no, months, of suppressed longing finally unleashed. She tasted of salt from dried tears and the faint sweetness of stolen sips of soda during her shift. Her hands clutched my shirt, fingers twisting in expensive fabric as if anchoring herself against the dizziness sweeping through her. A small, involuntary sound escaped her throat, part fear, part wonder, and it undid me completely. I slid one hand into her hair, angling her head gently, while the other settled at the small of her back, pulling her closer until no space remained between us. The world narrowed to this, her trembling against me, the warmth of her body chasing away the cold that had battered her for years, the soft, timid way she responded, despite the shock rippling through her. Emotional rupture hit us both, her from the impossible tenderness of a powerful man who should have remained distant, me from finally holding the woman who had become my light in unrelenting darkness. We broke apart only when breath became necessary, foreheads resting together. Her eyes were wide, dazed, tears welling anew from the intensity. She swayed in my arms, disorientation and emotional numbness making her cling tighter. I don't, she whispered, voice trembling, soft and restrained. Confusion warred with the spark of something deeper. This can't be real. It's real, I said fiercely, voice rough with the violence of my inner struggle. Guilt roared louder than ever. How dare I claim her when my world could destroy her? Yet the love refused to relent. I've wanted this since the first time I saw you smile at one of those elderly clients, even when you were exhausted beyond words. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. The contrast, my dominance, my wealth that could buy safety for 1,000 lifetimes against her heartbreaking poverty, made this moment almost cruel in its tenderness. She had endured eviction threats, utility shutoffs in winter, nights holding Micah close for warmth when heat was cut. And now, in the arms of a man whose single watch cost more than her annual income, she trembled from affection she had never known. I can't offer you normal, I confessed, the remorse tearing at me. My life is shadows, danger, but I can offer you safety, warmth, a future where you never have to choose between feeding Micah and paying rent. Her breath hitched in a sob. She pulled back slightly, searching my face with desperate curiosity. Why me? I'm nobody, just trying to survive. You're everything, I said, the words raw. Your strength, your kindness, despite every cruel twist fate has thrown at you. It's more than I deserve. The kiss resumed, slower this time, reverent. I poured every ounce of the passionate love anchoring me into it, gentle despite the storm inside, careful despite the hunger. She melted against me, timid responses growing bolder, as if tasting safety for the first time. But the night refused to grant us peace. My phone vibrated insistently, security alerting me to Black Dragon vehicles pulling up boldly at the venue's valet. Rivals testing boundaries already, drawn by whispers of my public claim. I pulled away reluctantly, keeping her close. We have to go inside, I said, voice steady despite the rising tension. It's not safe out here anymore. Fear flashed across her face, dread replacing the dazed wonder. She nodded mutely, clinging to my arm as we re-entered the building. The emotional high crashed into reality's harsh edges, her poverty's lingering humiliation evident in the way she smoothed her apron self-consciously, my wealth's dominance in the way staff averted eyes as we passed. In the private elevator descending to the garage, she leaned against the wall, dizziness returning. I caught her before she slid down, holding her gently until the doors opened to my waiting SUV. My driver averted his gaze respectfully as I helped her inside, my jacket still around her shoulders. As we pulled away from the venue, Black Dragon cars shadowed us at a distance, bold, provocative. Tension coiled in my gut. I signaled my security convoy. 2 vehicles moved to intercept without confrontation, a silent show of force that sent the rivals peeling away. Jasmine watched wide-eyed, shock deepening into fear. Those men, because of me. Because of me, I corrected gently, taking her hand. But I'll handle it. You and Micah, you're under my protection now. Fully. She searched my face, emotions shifting again, gratitude warring with terror, curiosity with the numbness of a life spent expecting cruelty. Tears fell silently as the city lights blurred past. In that quiet drive through Los Angeles streets, her from cold bus stops to heated leather seats, me from isolation to this fierce attachment, I felt the inner conflict rage harder than ever. Remorse for pulling her deeper into danger, love burning brighter for the chance to shield her from it. The first explosive kiss had changed everything. And as she rested her head cautiously against my shoulder, exhausted trust beginning to bloom, I vowed silently. Whatever shadows came next, I would face them all to keep this light in my fractured world. The SUV glided through the Los Angeles streets, heated leather seats cradling Jasmine while the city lights blurred past the tinted windows. She sat close to me, my jacket still around her shoulders, her small hand resting tentatively in mine. The kiss on the rooftop lingered between us like a living thing, tender, explosive, impossible to ignore. Her breathing had steadied, but I could feel the faint tremor running through her, the aftershocks of emotional rupture. I had just pulled her from the only world she knew, a world of cold bus rides home, of counting coins for Micah's formula, of nights when hunger kept her awake more surely than worry. Now she rode in a vehicle that cost more than most people earned in years, escorted by armed drivers who answered to me without question. The contrast clawed at my conscience. Guilt surged anew, violent and unrelenting. How could I, a man whose power was built on compromises and shadows, offer her sanctuary without staining her further? My phone lit up again. Reports from security. Black Dragon scouts had followed us 3 blocks before my convoy forced them to peel away. Word of my public claim at the gala, combined with Min-jun's careless joke and Jasmine's defiant reply, had spread like wildfire through the underground networks. In my world, perception was reality. By defending her so fiercely, by kissing her where whispers could carry, I had marked her as mine. Protection, yes, but also a target. "We can't take you home tonight," I said quietly, squeezing her hand. "It's not safe." Her head snapped toward me, fear flashing in her eyes. "Micah, my son. He's with the neighbor. If something happens." "He's safe," I assured her, already signaling my driver to detour towards South Los Angeles. "We'll pick him up first, then bring you both somewhere secure." Shock rippled across her face, followed by deep confusion. She pulled her hand away gently, wrapping her arms around herself beneath my jacket. "You're home?" Her voice was soft, timid, laced with the respectful caution of someone addressing overwhelming power. "My penthouse downtown," I confirmed. "Top floors, private elevator, full security. No one gets in without my approval." Disorientation made her sway even in the steady vehicle. She pressed a hand to her temple, dizziness evident. "This is too much. I can't just leave my life, my apartment, my shifts." "Your life isn't safe right now," I said, the words rougher than intended. Remorse twisted inside me. I had caused this escalation. My fierce, passionate love had painted a target on her back. Rivals are already moving. Because of me, because I couldn't hide what I feel for you. Tears welled again, spilling silently. The injustice crushed her visibly. A single mother who had endured eviction scares, utility shutoffs in winter, nights walking home in biting winds because bus fare meant less food for Micah, now uprooted because a powerful man had claimed her publicly. "I don't belong in your world," she whispered, voice breaking. "I'm just trying to keep my baby fed." The words tore at me. I reached for her again, gently turning her face toward mine. "You belong wherever I can keep you safe," I said fiercely, "and right now, that's with me." We pulled up to her apartment building in South Los Angeles, a tired complex with flickering security lights and graffiti-tagged walls. The contrast hit me like a physical blow. My downtown tower with its marble lobbies and concierge service against this place where cold drafts whistled through cracked windows, where residents double-locked doors against nightly dangers. Jasmine led me upstairs, her steps hesitant, humiliation coloring her cheeks as she unlocked the door with shaking keys. The apartment was small, sparsely furnished, a sagging couch, a tiny kitchen with bare counters, children's toys scattered on worn carpet. Micah slept in a portable crib, his small chest rising and falling peacefully. The air held a faint chill, the heat sporadically unreliable. She gathered a few things quickly: diapers, formula, Micah's favorite blanket, her movements efficient, despite the emotional numbness settling over her. I watched, chest tight, as she lifted her sleeping son gently into her arms. He stirred, murmuring "Mama," and nestled against her. The sight, her emaciated frame cradling him protectively, intensified my inner turmoil to a breaking point. My driver carried the small bag she packed. As we descended the stairs, trouble waited. 3 Black Dragon enforcers lounged against a lowrider across the street, bold, provocative, testing boundaries. They straightened when they saw us, one calling out in Korean, voice mocking. "Bringing home strays now, Kang. Careful, she might bite." Tension coiled instantly. My security moved forward, forming a subtle wall. I handed Micah carefully to Jasmine in the SUV before stepping toward the street. The love burning inside me turned cold and lethal. No one threatened what was mine. "Drive on," I told the lead enforcer in Korean, voice calm but edged with steel. "Or don't drive at all." They laughed, but uncertainty flickered. My reputation preceded me. Fair-skinned Korean boss who had risen through calculated dominance, whose word carried weight across territories. One pulled out a phone, likely recording for leverage. My men closed ranks silently, a show of force without escalation. The standoff lasted seconds that felt eternal. Finally, the leaders smirked but retreated to their car, peeling away with unnecessary noise. Suspense hung heavy as we pulled out, my convoy flanking us protectively. Jasmine clutched Micah tighter, fear whitening her knuckles. They were, because of tonight? Because of me, I admitted, remorse surging. But they won't touch you. Either of you. The drive to downtown felt endless. Micah slept against her chest. She stared out the window, tears falling silently. When we reached my building, sleek glass tower piercing the sky, valet service and private security, the contrast struck her visibly. She swayed getting out, dizziness and shock combining as uniformed staff opened doors she had never imagined entering. The private elevator required my fingerprint and keycard. As it ascended directly to the penthouse, Jasmine leaned against the wall, emotional numbness deepening. "This is like a dream," she murmured, voice soft and restrained. "Or a nightmare I don't understand." The doors opened to sprawling rooms, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city lights, modern kitchens stocked with essentials, guest suites larger than her entire apartment. I carried Micah to one, laying him gently in a prepared crib. My staff had anticipated needs with quiet efficiency. Jasmine stood in the living area, my jacket still around her, looking small and lost amid the luxury. "I can't pay for this," she whispered, humiliation breaking through numbness. "Any of it." "You don't have to," I said, stepping close but giving space. "This is sanctuary, for as long as needed." Curiosity flickered through her fear. She walked to the windows, pressing a hand to the cool glass, staring at the glittering view she had only seen from far below. Tears fell faster now, from relief, from terror, from the absurd unfairness of fate lifting her from cold nights to this warmth in hours. I approached slowly, wrapping my arms around her from behind. She tensed, then relaxed fractionally, leaning back against me. The passionate love anchoring me surged again, fierce, protective, overwhelming. "You're safe here," I murmured against her hair. "Both of you." She turned in my arms, eyes searching mine with desperate intensity. "What happens now?" "Now," I said, voice thick with emotion, "we figure it out together, one day at a time." In the quiet of the penthouse, city lights sparkling below, Micah sleeping safely, the forced sanctuary began. My inner conflict raged harder than ever. Remorse for disrupting her life, guilt for the danger I brought, love burning brighter for the chance to give her everything she deserved. As she rested her head against my chest, exhausted trust beginning to take root, I held her close. Whatever chaos waited outside, whatever cruel fate tested us next, this moment, this woman and child in my arms, was worth every shadow I carried. The fractured man inside me had found his anchor, and I would fight the world to keep it. The penthouse settled into an unfamiliar quiet after Micah's soft breathing evened out in the guest suite. Jasmine stood in the vast living area. My jacket finally slipped from her shoulders and folded carefully over a chair. as if she feared creasing something priceless. The floor-to-ceiling windows framed the Los Angeles skyline like a living painting, lights twinkling across the sprawl below. She stared at it all with wide, dazed eyes, one hand pressed to her chest as though to slow her racing heart. I watched her from the kitchen island, giving her space, yet unable to look away. The fierce love that had anchored me since the gala now burned with new intensity, passionate, protective, almost painful in its depth. But guilt rode alongside it, a violent storm. I had torn her from the only home she knew, however humble, and planted her here amid luxury that must feel alien, intimidating. My wealth, private chefs on call, art worth millions on the walls, security systems that could lock down the building in seconds, stood in brutal contrast to the life she had endured. Emaciated from skipped meals, sleepless nights rocking a feverish Micah with no medicine, cold winds slicing through thin walls as utility bills went unpaid. She turned to me slowly, emotions shifting across her face like clouds across the moon. Fear lingered, mingled with cautious curiosity, and the deep disorientation of a woman whose world had flipped in hours. "This place," she whispered, voice soft and restrained, respectful in the way of someone addressing overwhelming power. "It's beautiful, but I feel like I'm dreaming or trespassing." "You're not," I said, stepping closer but stopping when she tensed. "This is yours now, as long as you need." Tears welled instantly, spilling over. She swayed, dizziness returning, and I caught her elbows gently to steady her. The contact sent that familiar jolt through me, her cold fingers clutching my sleeves, her thin frame trembling against my strength. Emotional numbness seemed to settle over her then. Tears fell silently as years of crushing poverty, of irrational injustices like denied aid applications and predatory landlords, crashed against this sudden sanctuary. "I don't know how to be here," she admitted, voice breaking. "Micah and we have nothing. I can't even buy groceries without counting every dollar." The confession tore at me. Remorse surged, violent and unrelenting. I, who could buy entire grocery chains on a whim, had let her suffer this long under the guise of distant protection. "You don't have to count anymore," I said fiercely, guiding her to the plush sectional sofa. She sank into it as if her legs could no longer hold her, the softness foreign after years on a sagging second-hand couch. I sat beside her, close but not crowding, and took her hands in mine. "Whatever you need, food, clothes, medicine, it's yours." Curiosity broke through her numbness. She looked around again, eyes lingering on the fully stocked kitchen visible through the open design. "You cook?" A small, rueful smile tugged at me, the first genuine one in days. "Sometimes, when the loneliness gets too loud." Her gaze softened, a flicker of understanding. In that quiet moment, tenderness bloomed between us. I rose and led her to the kitchen, pulling out ingredients with practiced ease. Rice, vegetables, marinated beef for bulgogi, banchan my housekeeper kept prepared. Jasmine watched, hesitant at first, then joined me timidly, chopping vegetables with careful precision born of necessity. We cooked side by side, the sizzle of meat on the stovetop filling the air with savory warmth. Micah wandered out sleepily midway, rubbing his eyes, and I lifted him onto a stool without thinking. He stared at me with wide curiosity, then smiled shyly when I offered him a piece of cooked carrot. Jasmine's eyes misted watching us, emotions shifting again, gratitude warring with fear, love for her son deepening the vulnerability of this new reality. Domestic intimacy wrapped around us like a blanket. We ate at the island, simple Korean comfort food that filled the penthouse with homey scents. Micah babbled happily, full for perhaps the first time in weeks without portion worry. Jasmine ate slowly, as if savoring each bite, tears occasionally slipping down her cheeks from sheer relief. After tucking Micah back in, she returned to the living room, standing by the windows again. I joined her, wrapping my arms around her from behind as I had on the rooftop. She leaned back this time, trust growing in small measures. "This feels safe," she whispered, voice soft. "Warm. I haven't felt warm in so long." The words ruptured something inside me. I turned her gently, cupping her face. The kiss that followed was slow, reverent, weeks of suppressed longing finding gentle expression. She responded timidly at first, then with growing confidence, hands resting against my chest. The passionate love anchoring me surged, fierce and protective. But intimacy brought truth. As we sat together later, her head against my shoulder, the conversation turned deeper. She spoke haltingly of her life, the ex who abandoned her pregnant, the jobs that paid too little, the constant humiliation of food bank lines and judgmental glances. Then, voice trembling, she revealed the twist that shattered the fragile peace. "I'm pregnant," she whispered, eyes fixed on her hands. 3 months. From before. The father, he left when I told him. I haven't told anyone. Shock slammed into me, sharp and profound. The room tilted. I gripped the sofa edge to steady myself. Another child, hers from a past that had already crushed her with unfairness. Emotional rupture hit her visibly, tears streaming, body shaking with sobs as humiliation and fear overwhelmed her. "I didn't know how I'd manage," she confessed, voice breaking. "2 babies, alone, working doubles until I can't anymore." The revelation intensified my inner turmoil to unbearable levels. Guilt roared. How had I not known? Remorse for every day she carried this burden alone while I watched from afar. But beneath it, something unexpected bloomed. Fierce determination to claim not just her, but this unborn child too. I pulled her close, holding her as sobs racked her thin frame. "You're not alone anymore," I said, voice rough with emotion. "Not you, not Micah, not this baby." She looked up, shock giving way to desperate hope. You'd want that, with someone like me, carrying someone else's. "I want you," I said fiercely. "All of you, every part of your life, every child you bring into it. I'll be whatever you need, protector, provider, father if you'll let me." Tears fell faster, but they carried relief now. She buried her face against my chest, clinging as emotional numbness finally cracked into tentative trust. Outside, danger stirred again. My phone buzzed, security reporting Black Dragon activity near Micah's old daycare, probing for weakness. Tension coiled, but I silenced it for now. This moment, her in my arms, vulnerable truth shared, was sacred. As she drifted to exhausted sleep against me, the first twist settled deep. My love expanded, passionate and all-consuming, now encompassing a family I had never dared dream of. But the shadows lengthened. Rivals would exploit any perceived vulnerability, and this pregnancy, this beautiful, heartbreaking revelation, had just become the most precious thing I would ever defend. The domestic intimacy deepened into something irrevocable, and as dawn approached over the city lights, I held her closer, inner conflict raging but love burning brighter. For her, for Micah, for the life growing inside her. Whatever cruel fate came next, I would face it all to keep them safe in this forced sanctuary I now called home. Dawn filtered through the penthouse windows, painting the city in soft gold. I had not slept. Jasmine lay curled against me on the wide sofa, her breathing finely even after hours of quiet tears and whispered confessions. Micah slept soundly in the guest room, oblivious to the storm gathering outside our temporary haven. The revelation of her pregnancy, 3 months along, a secret burden she had carried alone, had reshaped everything inside me. The fierce, passionate love that anchored my fractured heart now extended to this unborn child, a protectiveness so intense it bordered on pain. But peace was fragile. My phone vibrated on the marble counter, urgent messages from security. Black Dragon activity had spiked overnight. Scouts near Micah's old daycare, anonymous calls to Jasmine's former landlord, probing for information. And worst, a brief, controlled intrusion at the daycare itself. 2 men asking questions about a little boy named Micah Carter before staff alerted authorities. Rage surged, cold and lethal. I silenced the phone, not wanting to wake her yet. Guilt twisted violently alongside it. I had brought this danger. My public claim, my inability to hide my feelings, had turned her quiet struggle for survival into a target for rivals seeking leverage. Remorse gnawed deeper. How many more injustices would she endure because of me? Jasmine stirred, eyes fluttering open. She tensed at the unfamiliar surroundings, then relaxed fractionally when she saw me. Confusion flickered, followed by remembrance. The kiss, the move, the pregnancy confession. Tears welled anew, but she blinked them back. "Morning," she whispered, voice soft and timid. "Is everything okay?" I forced calm into my expression, brushing a curl from her forehead. "For now, but we need to talk." Her face paled. Dread washed over her features, dizziness making her grip my arm for balance. I helped her sit up, fetching water from the kitchen. She drank gratefully, hands trembling. The contrast struck me again. My endless supply of filtered water at the touch of a button, her past reality of rationing tap water when bills ran high. "Black dragons, the rivals I mentioned, they're making moves," I said quietly. "Questions about Micah at his daycare." Shock rippled through her. She swayed, emotional numbness crashing in as color drained from her face. "My baby, they went near my baby." "Not inside," I assured her, taking her hands. "Staff handled it, but it's a warning. They know claiming you publicly makes you important to me." Tears spilled freely now. She pulled away, standing unsteadily to pace toward the windows. The view, endless city expanse from my dominant perch, only heightened her disorientation. "Because of last night, because you protected me." "Because I love you," I said, the words raw. The admission hung heavy, intensifying the passionate attachment that had become my anchor. "And I won't let them touch you, any of you." She turned, eyes wide with fear and cautious curiosity. "How? Men like that, they don't stop." "They will," I said fiercely, "or I'll make them." The morning unfolded in tense quiet. I arranged breakfast, fresh fruit, eggs, pastries delivered from a downtown bakery I owned. Micah joined us, chattering happily in his high chair, unaware of the shadows. Jasmine ate mechanically, the food a luxury after months of stretching meager groceries. Tenderness bloomed in small moments. Her smile when Micah called me Mr. Dan again, my hand on her back as she navigated morning sickness. But escalation came swiftly. Mid-morning, security cameras caught Black Dragon vehicles circling the tower's underground garage. Bold, provocative. My men blocked entry without incident, but the message was clear. They were testing defenses. Then the call from daycare. Micah had been signed out early yesterday by someone claiming to be family. Staff realized the forgery too late, but located him safe with the neighbor. A brief kidnapping, minutes only. The boy returned unharmed but confused, left on the playground with a note. "Tell Kang we're watching." The news hit like a physical blow. Jasmine crumpled when I told her, a keening sob escaping as she raced to Micah's room. She scooped him up, rocking him frantically despite his protests that he was okay, mama. Shock and emotional rupture overwhelmed her, body shaking, tears soaking his hair, dizziness forcing her to sink to the floor. I knelt beside them, rage and remorse colliding violently inside me. Guilt roared. My world had touched her innocent child. The inner turmoil reached new depths. A man of immense power, yet powerless to undo this terror. "They took him," she whispered, voice breaking. "Even for minutes, they took my baby." "I'm sorry," I said, voice thick. I pulled them both into my arms, holding tight as she sobbed. Micah patted her cheek confusedly, murmuring comfort in his toddler way. The confrontation came that afternoon. Intel placed the perpetrators at a known Black Dragon hangout in Koreatown, an auto shop fronting their operations. I could not stay passive. "Stay here," I told Jasmine, kissing her forehead. "Lockdown protocol. No one in or out without my voice confirmation." Fear flashed in her eyes, but she nodded, clutching Micah. "Be careful." The drive was short, convoy tight. We pulled up to the shop, grease-stained bays, lowriders parked outside. 4 Black Dragon enforcers lounged, straightening warily as my vehicles blocked the street. I stepped out alone, hands visible, a show of confidence. The leader, a stocky man named Ji-hoon, smirked, but tension lined his eyes. "Kang," he greeted in Korean. "Bold, coming here personally." "You touched what's mine," I replied calmly, voice edged with steel. "The boy. Return him unharmed was smart. Doing it again would be suicide. Laughter rippled, but uncertain. Ji-hoon stepped forward. Heard you got a soft spot now. American girl. Kid that's not even yours. And another on the way? His grin widened at my involuntary tense. Word travels. Rage surged, but I held at least. Spread this word instead. Any move against them is war. Full war. You know what that costs. Suspense hung thick. Onlookers gathered at safe distances, street-level bold, but no one drew weapons. My reputation held them, fair-skinned boss who preferred negotiation but never bluffed. Ji-hoon shrugged, backing down fractionally. Just a message, boss. From higher up, they want to talk terms. There are no terms, I said, only consequences. We stared off long moments, the street tense. Finally, he nodded curtly, signaling retreat. My convoy pulled away, message delivered without bloodshed, but the escalation clear. Back at the penthouse, Jasmine waited by the windows, Micah asleep in her arms despite the hour, clinging from residual fear. She rushed to me when I entered, burying her face against my chest. "You're okay," she whispered, relief trembling in her voice. I held her tight, the day's events amplifying my inner conflict. Remorse for exposing them to this, guilt for the violence simmering beneath my control, love burning fiercer for the family now depending on me. "We need a plan," I said quietly. "A meeting, neutral ground, to end this before it worsens." Fear widened her eyes, but determination flickered too. "Whatever it takes," she murmured, "for Micah, for us." In that embrace, her fragile strength against my dominance, her past deprivation against my wealth, the rival escalation had forged something unbreakable. Quiet tenderness balanced the chaos, her hand on my cheek, my kiss on her forehead, promises whispered in the safety I had built. But as night fell over the city, I knew the storm was far from over. The passionate love anchoring me demanded I protect them at any cost, and the cost was rising with every heartbeat. The days following the brief kidnapping blurred into a tense lockdown. Jasmine barely left the penthouse windows, her gaze fixed on the city below, as if searching for threats in every passing car. Micah sensed her fear, clinging closer, his usual toddler energy subdued. Morning sickness hit her harder now, waves of nausea that left her pale and trembling, forcing her to the bathroom while I held her hair and murmured useless comforts. I watched it all with a heart increasingly torn. The passionate love anchoring me had become both salvation and torment. Every tear she shed, every flinch at a loud noise, amplified my remorse. I, Daniel Kang, fair-skinned heir to an empire of real estate holdings, private security firms, and underground networks spanning Los Angeles, could command boardrooms and street corners alike, yet I could not erase the terror from her eyes. Guilt raged violently. My world had reached into her fragile life and bruised it irreparably. We spoke little of the future at first. Quiet tenderness filled the gaps, me cooking simple meals of rice porridge when her stomach rebelled. Her head resting on my shoulder during late-night movies neither of us truly watched. Micah asleep between us like a small bridge. But escalation demanded action. Black Dragon probes grew bolder, anonymous deliveries of children's toys left at the tower lobby with cryptic notes, vehicles tailing my convoys at a distance. They wanted a response. One evening, as rain streaked the windows and Micah finally slept, I sat Jasmine down at the dining table. The city lights reflected in her dark eyes, exhaustion etched deeper from sleepless nights worrying over her children, born and unborn. "I can't keep you locked here forever," I said quietly, taking her hands. They were cold despite the penthouse warmth, a remnant of too many winters without proper heat. "We end this properly, a meeting, neutral ground." Fear flashed instantly, her fingers tightening in mine. "With them? The men who took Micah?" "With their leader," I confirmed, "at a private Norabang lounge in Koreatown. Public enough for safety, private enough for talk." She swayed, dizziness washing over her face. I steadied her gently, pulling her chair closer. Shock gave way to deep confusion, then cautious curiosity. "You'll negotiate? For us?" "For you," I corrected fiercely. "To make it clear, Any move against you, Micah, or the baby is war. Full war. Tears welled, spilling silently. The contrast, my dominance that could mobilize dozens of men in hours, against her past powerlessness where a single missed shift meant choosing between diapers and dinner, made her vulnerability heartbreaking. "I don't know how to do this," she whispered, voice soft and restrained. "Your world, it's terrifying." "I know," I said, remorse surging. "That's why you'll come with me." Her breath caught in dread. "Me? I can't." "You can," I insisted gently. "Hiding you makes you seem like weakness. Bringing you shows strength, that you're under my protection fully, personally." Disorientation hit her visibly. She gripped the table edge, emotional numbness settling as the idea sank in. "They'll see me, judge me, a poor nobody with." "You're everything." I cut in, voice rough with emotion. The love burned hotter, anchoring me against the inner storm. "Your courage, carrying 2 children alone through everything the world threw at you, it's more strength than they understand." Curiosity broke through fear. She searched my face, finding sincerity that steadied her slightly. "What do I do? Say." "I'll teach you," I promised. "The etiquette, how to read the room, how to speak if addressed, and how silence can be power." The next days became preparation. I cleared my schedule, focusing entirely on her. We practiced in the living room, posture, eye contact, subtle signals. I explained hierarchies, how respect was shown through small gestures, how direct confrontation was rare because it forced public loss of face. Jasmine absorbed it with quiet determination, though fear lingered. Morning sickness interrupted sessions. I held her through them, wiping her face with cool cloths, the intimacy deepening our bond. Micah played nearby, oblivious, his laughter a brief balm against the tension. One afternoon, shopping arrived, discreetly delivered dresses for the meeting. Nothing ostentatious, elegant, sophisticated pieces that would command respect without screaming wealth. Jasmine tried one, an emerald silk that complemented her skin, standing before the full-length mirror with hesitant wonder. "I don't recognize myself," she murmured, voice timid. The fabric draped perfectly, hiding the emaciation that still lingered from hardship, making her look regal despite the dark circles from sleepless nights. "You should," I said, stepping behind her, hands on her shoulders. "This is you, strong, beautiful, worthy of every protection." Tears threatened again. She turned in my arms, rising on toes to kiss me softly. The contact ignited tenderness, slow, reverent, a quiet promise amid gathering storm. But preparation included hard truths. I showed her files, carefully redacted, on Black Dragon operations, their leader Taesung's reputation for calculated cruelty. Her fear deepened, but so did resolve. "If something happens to you," she whispered one night, curled against me in bed. "Nothing will," I vowed, though inner turmoil raged. Remorse for risking more pain, guilt for the danger my love had invited. Street-level tensions rose meanwhile. Black Dragon tags appeared on handbit properties, bold warnings sprayed overnight. My men removed them swiftly, but one confrontation erupted near a Koreatown market, rivals blocking a delivery truck, demanding tribute for safe passage. I arrived personally, convoy pulling up abruptly. Taesung's lieutenant waited with half a dozen men, smirking. "Message from the boss," he said. "Bring the girl to the table, or we take what we want." Suspense thickened the air. Shoppers retreated, phones recorded from safe distances. I stepped forward alone, presence dominating the street. "You don't dictate terms," I said calmly. "The meeting happens as I set, or not at all." Standoff stretched, tension electric. Finally, he backed down with a mocking bow, vehicles retreating. Message received, but escalation confirmed. Back home, Jasmine waited anxiously. I told her only the outcome, sparing details. She clung to me, fear shifting to desperate gratitude. "You're doing this for us," she whispered, "risking everything." "For you," I corrected, holding her close. The passionate love surged, anchoring against remorse. "Always for you." Preparation culminated in quiet reflection the night before. We stood at the windows, city lights sprawling below, my empire's heart. "I'm scared," she admitted softly, hand on her still flat stomach. "I know," I said, covering her hand with mine. "But together, we face it." Tenderness balanced the chaos, a gentle kiss, promises whispered. Her past deprivation, cold winds, hunger, humiliation, contrasted sharply with this moment of safety in my arms. As we prepared for bed, inner conflict peaked. Guilt for pulling her deeper, love burning brighter for the family we protected. The reckoning approached, and whatever fate waited, I would meet it, for her light to shine undimmed in my shadowed world. The Norabang Lounge in Koreatown was closed to the public that night, its neon sign dimmed, private rooms reserved for one purpose. My convoy pulled up precisely at 8, engines purring softly in the rain-slick street. Security flanked every entrance, my men and theirs in careful balance, an unspoken agreement to keep weapons holstered unless lines were crossed. Jasmine sat beside me in the back seat, her hand clenched in mine. The emerald silk dress fit her perfectly, but she looked small within it, shoulders drawn in against the fear radiating from her. Morning sickness had eased for the evening, yet exhaustion lingered, dark circles from sleepless nights worrying over Micah and the baby, her frame still carrying the emaciation of too many skipped meals. I had left Micah with my most trusted lieutenant and a full security detail at the penthouse. Even so, her maternal dread was palpable. "You don't have to speak unless addressed," I reminded her gently, brushing a thumb across her knuckles. "Stay close. Follow my lead." She nodded, voice barely a whisper. "I'm scared, Daniel." The admission pierced me. Remorse surged, violent and unrelenting. I had brought her here, into the heart of my shadowed world, because hiding her would signal weakness. Yet seeing her fear, feeling her tremble, intensified the inner turmoil that had become my constant companion. Guilt roared. A man of my wealth and dominance should shield her from this, not parade her before rivals. "I know," I said, voice rough, "but you're stronger than they can imagine." Curiosity flickered briefly in her eyes, mingled with cautious trust. She squeezed my hand once, drawing a shaky breath, and we stepped out into the drizzle. Inside, the lounge was dimly lit, private booths with karaoke screens dark, a central table set with soju bottles and untouched banchan. Taesung waited there, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, flanked by 2 lieutenants. His presence carried the weight of years in this life, a man who had risen through calculated ruthlessness. He stood as we approached, gaze assessing Jasmine with uncomfortable intensity. My hand settled possessively at the small of her back, a silent claim. "Daniel Kang," he greeted in Korean accented English, respectful but probing. "And this is the woman causing all the noise." "Jasmine Carter," I replied evenly, "under my full protection, personal and family." We sat. The air thickened with unspoken tension. Jasmine perched on the edge of her chair, hands folded tightly in her lap, eyes downcast in the subtle deference I had taught her. Yet her chin lifted fractionally, quiet strength shining through fear. Taesung poured soju, the ritual a thin veil over hostility. "Heard interesting things," he began, sipping slowly. "An American girl from nothing. A child, another coming. Suddenly worth risking peace over." "She's worth whatever I decide," I said calmly, the edge in my tone unmistakable. "Any action against her, the boy or the child she's carrying, is action against me. Against Hanbit entirely." One lieutenant shifted, eyes flicking to Jasmine with curiosity and faint disdain. "Used to be you kept business clean of complications." The barb landed. Jasmine tensed beside me, humiliation coloring her cheeks, the old shame of poverty, of being seen as lesser, resurfacing under their gaze. Taesung leaned forward. "Your protection is noted, but old connections die hard." Her mother, nurse who patched up enemies and friends alike, saved lives that crossed lines. Some might see the daughter as balance. The implication hung heavy, leverage or revenge for past mercies that cost his side. Jasmine's breath caught, Dizziness washed over her face, hand pressing to her stomach instinctively. Before I could respond, she spoke, voice soft, restrained, trembling but steady. My mama saved lives because it was right, not for favors, not for debts. Her eyes lifted to Taesung's, fear evident but resolve burning brighter. She taught me people deserve mercy, even when the world says otherwise. Punishing me, punishing my children, for her kindness, that would make you less than the men you claim to be. Silence fell, thick and stunned. My heart pounded with pride and terror. She had spoken boldly, honoring the lessons I gave while pouring her own truth into them. Taesung's eyebrows rose, sharp eyes reassessing her. The lieutenants exchanged glances, surprise, reluctant respect. Then the twist. Taesung's expression shifted, something raw flickering across hardened features. That night 20 years ago, he said slowly, voice lowering. County hospital. Chaos after a street shootout. I was one of the wounded brought in. Rival to you then, Kang. Shock slammed into me. Jasmine swayed beside me, hand gripping mine under the table for balance. Your mother, he continued, gaze fixed on her. Hid me too, in the same supply closet. Treated wounds that should have killed me. Lied to police when they searched. Said a patient had been discharged early. Emotional rupture hit Jasmine visibly. Tears welled instantly, spilling over as disorientation and deep confusion overwhelmed her. Her free hand pressed to her mouth, muffling a soft gasp. The revelation, her mother's mercy extending even to enemies, crashed against years of loss, of raising children alone after cancer claimed the woman who had quietly saved lives across divides. Taesung's voice roughened. I never forgot. Owed her a debt I could never repay. Seeing her daughter now, with you, he paused, jaw tightening. Changes things. The room held its breath. My inner turmoil peaked. Remorse for bringing her into danger, guilt for underestimating shared history, love surging fiercer at her courage. Taesung leaned back, decision settling. The girl, woman, is under your protection. We respect it. No moves against her, the boy or the child coming. Old debts, consider them balanced. Relief flooded me, tempered by caution. His lieutenant protested quietly in Korean, but Taesung silenced him with a look. Word will spread, he added, standing. Peace holds, for her mother's sake as much as yours. We rose. Jasmine stood unsteadily, tears still falling silently. I kept my hand at her back, guiding her out. The rivals parted respectfully, no further probes, no lingering threats. In the SUV, doors closed against the rain, Jasmine crumpled against me. Sobs racked her thin frame, relief, shock, the weight of her mother's hidden legacy finally known. I held her tightly, my own composure fracturing. Tears pricked my eyes, rare, unwelcome, but unstoppable. You were incredible, I whispered, voice thick, brave beyond words. She clung harder, emotional numbness giving way to desperate gratitude. She saved him too, all this time. The confrontation ended not in war, but mercy, a twist born of shared history and her quiet courage. As we drove through wet streets back to the penthouse, tenderness enveloped us. My hand on her stomach, her head against my chest, promises whispered. My inner conflict eased fractionally. Guilt for the risk, remorse for past silences, love burning brightest. The reckoning had come, and through her light, we had found unexpected grace in the shadows. The drive back to the penthouse passed in a haze of rain and city lights. Jasmine leaned heavily against me, her body trembling with the aftershocks of the confrontation. Silent tears still traced paths down her cheeks, catching the passing neon glow in fleeting sparks. I held her close, one arm wrapped protectively around her shoulders, my hand resting lightly on the subtle curve of her stomach, where our future child, her child, now mine in every way that mattered, grew quietly. The revelation in the Noraebang had shattered us both. Taesung's confession, that Jasmine's mother had saved him too all those years ago, had transformed threatened war into unexpected mercy. Yet the emotional rupture lingered, raw and overwhelming. For her, it was the sudden expansion of a mother's hidden legacy of kindness, a legacy that had left her daughter to struggle alone through poverty's cruel grip. For me, it was proof that light could pierce even the deepest shadows, and that I, a man steeped in those shadows, had nearly dragged her light into darkness forever. We entered the penthouse in silence. Micah was asleep in the guest room, watched over by my most trusted guard until we returned. The space felt different now, safer, yet charged with the intensity of what we had survived together. Jasmine slipped off her heels, swaying with exhaustion and lingering dizziness. I caught her gently, guiding her to the sofa where soft lamps cast warm pools of light. She sank down, hands pressed to her face as fresh sobs escaped. "She saved him," she whispered, voice breaking. "The man who could have hurt my baby. Mama saved his life too." I knelt before her, pulling her hands away to cradle her face. Tears streamed over my thumbs, hers hot with grief and relief, mine threatening at the edges of my vision. The inner turmoil that had raged for weeks reached a crescendo. Remorse for every moment I had watched her suffer from afar. Guilt for the danger my love had invited, and a passionate, all-consuming devotion that now demanded full surrender. "You're safe," I said fiercely, voice rough. "All of you. The war is over because of her, because of you." Her eyes searched mine, shock giving way to desperate wonder. "You brought me there. Let me speak. Believed I could." "Because you could," I said. "Your courage, your truth, it ended what force alone might not have." Emotional numbness cracked then. She leaned forward, forehead resting against mine, breath mingling in the small space between us. The contrast struck me again. Her fragile strength forged in deprivation, cold nights without heat, hunger that left her emaciated, humiliation of aid offices and judgmental stares, against my dominance, my wealth that could summon private doctors or buy entire buildings on a whim. "I was so scared," she admitted softly, voice restrained and trembling. But when he talked about Mama, it felt like she was there, guiding me. I pulled her into my arms fully then, lifting her easily and carrying her to the master bedroom, our bedroom now, though I had never dared assume it before tonight. Moonlight filtered through the windows, silvering the vast space, king bed with silk sheets, city view stretching endlessly below. I laid her down gently, but she clung to me, pulling me with her. The kiss began slow, reverent, grateful, but weeks of restraint shattered in moments. Hunger surged, desperate and deep. Her hands slid into my hair, fingers trembling as they traced my face, my neck, as if memorizing the man who had become her shield. "Daniel," she whispered against my lips, voice thick with emotion. I need to feel safe, real." The plea undid me. I kissed her harder, careful of her condition, yet unable to hold back the passionate storm. Clothes fell away slowly, my suit jacket, her silk dress pooling like emerald water on the floor. Skin to skin for the first time, the contact was electric, her cool from lingering fear, mine burning with devotion. She was beautiful in moonlight, curves softened by pregnancy, marks of hardship etched in faint stretch lines, and the delicate thinness of wrists. I kissed every inch reverently, collarbones sharp from past hunger, the gentle swell of her stomach carrying new life, hips that had carried Micah through exhaustion. Tears fell from her eyes even as she arched into my touch. "No one's ever," she whispered, voice breaking, "touched me like I'm precious." "You are," I said fiercely, voice rough with tears of my own. "More than precious. Everything." The surrender was mutual, her timid responses growing bolder, my careful restraint giving way to desperate need. We moved together slowly at first, then with increasing intensity. Weeks of suppressed longing, of fear and protection, finding expression in touch and whispered promises. She clung to me as waves built, sobs mingling with soft cries of release, not just physical, but emotional rupture finally finding outlet. I held her through it, whispering her name like prayer, my own release crashing with hers in a moment that felt sacred. Afterward, we lay tangled in silk sheets, sweat cooling, moonlight painting silver across our skin. I traced lazy patterns on her back, feeling her tremble fade into deep contentment. "I love you," I said quietly, the words raw and honest. "I know it's fast, overwhelming, but it's true. From the moment I saw your strength, your light, I've loved you." Tears pricked her eyes again, but they carried joy now. "I tried not to," she whispered. "Told myself a man like you couldn't want someone broken like me, with children not yours. But I love you too, Daniel, so much it scares me." I pressed my forehead to hers, hand settling on her stomach. "These children are mine," I said fiercely. "Micah already calls me Mr. Dan. This one," I caressed the gentle curve, "will know me as father from the first breath. I'll spend every day earning that place." She covered my hand with hers, tears falling softly. "You already have." The passionate surrender deepened into quiet intimacy, whispered dreams of a future beyond shadows, plans for Micah's preschool, prenatal care from the best doctors my influence could summon. Her past deprivation, cold winds through cracked windows, nights holding a sick child with no medicine, contrasted sharply with promises of warmth, security, abundance. Yet even in afterglow, inner turmoil lingered. Guilt for the danger survived, remorse for years lost watching from afar. But love burned brightest, anchoring me to this woman who had become my redemption. As she drifted to sleep against my chest, breathing sinking with mine, I held her closer. The confrontation had ended in mercy, but this surrender, this full claiming of hearts and futures, was the true victory. In the moonlight of my penthouse, far above the city's struggles, we had found home in each other. And whatever challenges waited beyond these walls, we would face them together, bound by a love fierce enough to rewrite destinies forged in hardship and shadow alike. The weeks following the confrontation should have been a time of quiet rebuilding. Word spread quickly through the underground channels. Taesung had backed down, honoring an old debt to Jasmine's mother. Peace settled over Koreatown like a fragile blanket. Black Dragon vehicles no longer shadowed my convoys. No more cryptic toys appeared in the lobby. Security relaxed fractionally. Jasmine began to smile more freely, her hand often resting on the gentle swell of her stomach as morning sickness eased. We fell into tentative rhythms, mornings with Micah's laughter echoing through the penthouse halls, afternoons walking the private rooftop garden where Jasmine could feel sunlight without fear, evenings cooking together, simple Korean dishes mingled with soul food recipes from her childhood. The passionate love that had surrendered us to each other deepened daily. Slow kisses in the kitchen, her head on my chest as we watched city lights, whispered dreams of a life beyond shadows. Yet beneath the calm, my inner turmoil festered. Guilt gnawed relentlessly. I had pulled her from one form of hardship only to risk another. Remorse for the years I watched silently while she struggled with cold winds through cracked windows, with hunger that left her emaciated, with the humiliation of aid lines and overdue notices. My wealth, private tutors now lined up for Micah, prenatal specialists on call, closets filling with clothes she still touched hesitantly, felt like inadequate repayment for the cruelty fate had dealt her. The new threat emerged subtly, insidiously. It began with small discrepancies, a delivery of imported goods delayed at the port, a real estate deal stalled by unexpected federal scrutiny. I dismissed them at first, normal friction in my world. But then Min-jun disappeared for 2 days without word, unusual for my once loyal lieutenant who had nursed resentment since the gala. He returned late one night, requesting a private meeting. I agreed, meeting him in the penthouse office overlooking the city. Jasmine was asleep with Micah. The hour felt safe. Min-jun entered pale, eyes avoiding mine. "Boss, I made a mistake." The confession spilled quickly. Humiliated by my public rebuke at the gala, nursing jealousy over Jasmine, he had reached out to federal agents, offering information on Hanbit operations in exchange for immunity. He named her as my weakness, provided details of the penthouse security rotations, even suggested leverage through Micah's old daycare records. Shock slammed into me like ice water. I stood slowly, the room tilting as rage and betrayal collided. "You betrayed us," I said quietly, voice edged with lethal calm. "For pride?" He dropped to his knees, forehead to the floor, a traditional plea. I was angry, stupid. They promised protection. I didn't think. "You didn't think," I repeated, inner turmoil erupting. Guilt roared louder than ever. My actions at the gala had driven this, my inability to handle Min-jun's humiliation privately. Remorse for trusting him too long. And beneath it, terror for Jasmine, for the children. Raids hit at dawn. Federal agents swarmed Hambit properties, warehouses, offices, even the foundation's scholarship offices. News helicopters circled downtown. My phone exploded. Lawyers mobilizing, allies distancing themselves. I reached the bedroom before agents breached the penthouse. Jasmine woke to my urgent touch, confusion shifting to dread as I explained in hushed tones. "They're coming," I said, helping her dress quickly. Min-jun turned, gave them everything. Her face drained of color. She swayed, dizziness overwhelming her as shock and fear crashed in waves. "Because of me?" she whispered, voice small and restrained. "Your weakness?" "No," I said fiercely, pulling her close. "Because of my choices, never you." Agents entered minutes later, polite but firm, badges flashing under penthouse lights. They arrested me on charges of racketeering, money laundering, enough to hold but not yet convict. Jasmine stood frozen in the living room, Micah clinging to her legs as they cuffed me. The image burned into my soul. Her tear-streaked face, emaciated frame trembling in oversized robe. The brutal injustice of her safe haven shattered again. From cold apartments and hunger to this, federal intrusion because a powerful man's love had made her visible. "Don't come to the station," I told her as they led me out. "Lawyers will handle bond. Keep the children safe." Fear widened her eyes, but she nodded mutely, clutching Micah as doors closed behind me. Holding cells were cold, sterile, ironic contrast to the luxury I had known. Hours stretched into a day. Inner conflict raged unchecked. Remorse for dragging her into this chaos, guilt for leaving her vulnerable again, passionate love burning as my only anchor. I refused visits, fearing association would taint her further, but Jasmine defied me. She appeared at the detention center the next afternoon, visibly pregnant now in loose clothing. Micah left with trusted guards. Her eyes were red from sleepless nights, face gaunt from stress reigniting old hunger patterns. She had barely eaten since the raid. "They said you refused visitors," she said softly through the glass partition, voice restrained but trembling. "But I had to see you." Seeing her there, crushed again by cruel fate, by injustices stacked against the powerless, tore me apart. Tears pricked my eyes, composure fracturing. "You shouldn't be here," I said roughly. "They'll paint you as involved." "I don't care," she whispered, hand pressing to the glass. "You're not facing this alone." Emotional rupture hit us both. Tears fell freely as we spoke of love, of promises, of the children waiting. Her courage, coming despite fear, despite the humiliation of scrutiny, intensified my devotion. Bond was granted late that evening, my lawyers efficient, influence lingering. But conditions: house arrest at the penthouse, ankle monitor, restricted movement. Agents escorted me home. Jasmine waited at the door, eyes wide with relief and lingering fear. The moment cuffs were removed, she flew into my arms, sobbing against my chest. "You're back," she whispered, voice breaking. "For now," I said, holding her tightly. Micah toddled over, hugging my legs. The new thread had struck deep, but in this embrace, her fragile strength against my dominance, her past deprivation against the home we built, the passionate love anchoring us refused to break. House arrest became unexpected sanctuary, time together uninterrupted, planning for the baby, healing from betrayal's wounds. Min-jun vanished, handled quietly through channels that preserved peace. As nights passed with her curled against me, inner turmoil eased fractionally. Guilt remained, remorse for the pain caused, but love burned brightest. The new threat had tested us, and in surviving it together, we had forged something unbreakable. Whatever trials waited beyond these walls, we would face them as one, bound by devotion fierce enough to withstand even betrayal's cruelest blow. House arrest transformed the penthouse into a gilded cage. The ankle monitor on my leg, a cold, constant reminder of Min-jun's betrayal, restricted me to these walls, while federal agents monitored communications and visitors. Lawyers came and went, briefing me on mounting charges, racketeering, conspiracy, financial crimes woven through legitimate businesses. Evidence from Min-jun's cooperation painted a damning picture, enough for trial, but thin on direct proof. Bond held, but freedom felt distant. Jasmine navigated the confinement with quiet resilience, though fear lingered in her eyes. Her pregnancy advanced, 5 months now, the swell more pronounced beneath loose sweaters. Morning sickness had faded, replaced by fatigue that left her napping often, Micah curled beside her. The contrast haunted me daily. Her past life of relentless hardship, cold winds through drafty apartments, nights skipping meals to feed her son, the humiliation of overdue notices and judgmental caseworkers. Against this forced luxury where meals arrived prepared, medical care came to the door. I watched her move through the rooms with cautious wonder, touching marble counters as if they might vanish. Guilt intensified my inner turmoil to unbearable levels. Remorse for the raid's terror, for agents invading our sanctuary, for leaving her to face my arrest alone that dawn. The passionate love anchoring me burned fiercer, but now laced with violent tension. How could I protect her when my own empire had become the threat? We clung to small rituals for sanity. Mornings reading to Micah on the sofa, afternoons with prenatal visits via video, top specialists my influence still reached. Evenings cooking together, her teaching me soul food staples while I shared Korean family recipes from my mother's faded notes. Yet isolation wore on her. One afternoon, as rain lashed the windows, she stood staring at the city below, hand on her stomach. "I feel trapped again," she whispered softly, voice restrained. Not like before, with bills and cold, but watched, judged. The words pierced me. I approached slowly, wrapping arms around her from behind. She leaned back, trembling slightly. "This is my fault," I said, voice rough. "My world closing in." She turned, eyes searching mine with desperate curiosity amid fear. "No, you gave us safety, warmth, love." Tears welled. "But the trial, if they take you?" Dread washed over her face, dizziness making her sway. I guided her to the sofa, holding her as emotional numbness settled. "They won't," I vowed, though uncertainty gnawed inside me. The trial date approached swiftly, preliminary hearings escalating. Prosecutors painted me as untouchable kingpin. Defense countered with legitimate business records. Min-jun's testimony loomed, his cooperation deal sealing his fate in our world, but threatening mine. I refused Jasmine's visits to early proceedings, fearing association would harm her. "Stay safe," I told her during monitored calls, "for the baby." But she defied again. On the day of a key evidence hearing, she appeared in court, visibly pregnant, dressed simply but elegantly in clothes I had sent. Reporters swarmed, cameras flashed. She sat in the gallery, eyes locked on mine across the room. Shock rippled through me. The judge called order, proceedings paused briefly. Seeing her there, risking scrutiny, defined my wishes to support me, ignited emotional rupture. Tears pricked my eyes in the defendant's chair, composure fracturing under her steady gaze. Later, during a recess, lawyers arranged a brief meeting in a side room. She entered escorted, face pale from stress and the ordeal of public exposure. "You shouldn't have come," I said roughly, pulling her into my arms despite guards nearby. "I had to," she whispered, voice trembling but resolute. "You're not alone in this." We spoke urgently, love reaffirmed, promises whispered. But she had prepared more. "I want to testify," she said softly, "about the good you've done, the scholarships, the clinic funding no one talks about." Fear surged. "They'll twist it, paint you as complicit. Let them try, she said, chin lifting. The truth matters. Her courage, born from years facing injustices alone, shattered my restraint. I kissed her fiercely, guards averting eyes. The passionate love anchoring us flared, defiant against gathering storm. The hearing resumed. Prosecutors called witnesses painting shadows, defense chipped away. But public sympathy shifted subtly. Stories emerged of Hanbit Foundation aid, anonymous donations to community centers. Jasmine's presence, a pregnant woman supporting the accused, humanized the narrative. One evening, under house arrest, as Micah slept and rain softened against windows, Jasmine revealed her plan fully. "I'll speak about Mama," she said quietly. "How saving lives, including yours, including Taesung's, was who she was, and how you've honored that by protecting us, by changing." Tears fell from her eyes, memories of poverty's cruelty surfacing. Cold nights holding a feverish Micah with no doctor, hunger gnawing while pregnant and alone. "You've given us everything," she whispered. "Warmth, safety, love. The world should know the man I know." Emotional peaks crashed over us. I held her as sobs racked her frame, my own tears falling silently. Inner turmoil intensified. Remorse for risking her testimony, guilt for the pain my life caused, love burning as salvation. Trial day arrived. Jasmine took the stand, voice soft at first, restrained, but gaining strength. She spoke of her mother's mercy, of quiet community support from Hanbit, of my protection not as crime but redemption. Reporters scribbled, jury listened intently. Prosecutors cross-examined harshly, probing her relationship, implying influence. She answered honestly, timidly at times, but truthfully, never wavering. Public sympathy swelled. Headlines shifted. Pregnant witness defends accused philanthropist. Charges weakened, some dismissed for lack of evidence. Bond conditions eased, monitor removed pending full trial. I returned home fully, embraced by Jasmine and Micah at the door. "You did this," I whispered, holding her. "Your truth, your courage." "We did," she corrected softly, hand on her stomach where the baby kicked. House arrest ended, but the trial of love had forged us unbreakable. Quiet tenderness balanced chaos, evenings planning nursery, walks in the garden, dreams spoken aloud. My inner conflict eased, guilt lingering, remorse for past shadows, but love anchoring brightest. Jasmine's testimony, risking everything from her history of powerlessness, proved redemption possible. As we stood at windows watching city lights, her in my arms, the passionate devotion between us promised. Whatever fate remained, we faced it together. Light piercing shadows, love conquering trial's cruelest test. Months passed in a rhythm I had never known. The trial concluded with reduced charges, community service overseeing the foundation's scholarships, fines that barely dented my accounts, and a quiet agreement to shift operations fully legitimate. Min-jun vanished into witness protection. The shadows receded. Jasmine's pregnancy advanced gracefully, her body rounding with the life we both cherished. Micah thrived, calling me Daddy Daniel without hesitation, his laughter filling rooms that once echoed only my loneliness. We married quietly in the penthouse garden one warm October afternoon, before the present timeline closed its chapter. A small ceremony blending traditions, Korean payback bows for my heritage, jumping the broom for hers. Jasmine wore simple white lace, radiant despite the faint marks of past hardship still lingering in her slender frame. Micah carried rings on a velvet pillow, grinning proudly. I stood before her, vows trembling on my lips. "I promise to protect you, to honor your strength, to build a life where no cold wind ever touches you again." Her eyes shone with tears, joy now, not fear. "And I promise to love you through every shadow, to remind you of the light you carry inside." Our daughter arrived in early spring, a healthy girl with Jasmine's dark curls and my fair skin. We named her Hope, a quiet testament to what we had found amid hardship. The years that followed reshaped everything. I dismantled violent remnants of Hanbit, channeling resources into education and community support. Scholarships multiplied. Clinics opened in South Los Angeles neighborhoods like the one Jasmine once struggled in. Knowledge became our guiding force. Knowledge that power without compassion hollows the soul. Knowledge that education lifts generations. Knowledge that true wealth lies in lifting others. Jasmine finished nursing school with honors, her degree funded through the foundation she now helped direct. She worked part-time at a community clinic, her gentle hands healing those on survival's edge. The same hands that once rationed food now offered comfort freely. Life lesson upon life lesson unfolded. Education opens doors poverty slams shut. Knowledge of another's pain breeds empathy. Life lesson that compassion costs nothing, yet changes everything. Micah started kindergarten. Hope toddled after him. Evenings found us in the kitchen. Simple American meals of macaroni and grilled chicken, or Korean barbecue on the rooftop grill. Quiet tenderness balanced past chaos. Reading bedtime stories. Park walks where Micah chased pigeons. Jasmine's head on my shoulder as we watched sunsets. Yet inner turmoil never fully vanished. Remorse lingered for years lost, for dangers endured. Guilt surfaced in quiet moments, remembering her emaciated frame from those first nights, the humiliation she carried from aid offices and cold apartments. But love burned brightest, anchoring me through every reflection. One evening, as Hope nursed and Micah slept, Jasmine and I stood at the windows overlooking Los Angeles, the city that had tested us mercilessly. "We made it," she whispered softly, voice still carrying that respectful timbre when emotion ran deep. "We did," I said, holding her close, "because of you, your courage, your heart." She turned, eyes shining, "And yours. You chose light when shadows were easier." In that moment, profound knowledge settled. Love transcends skin color and social class. Wealth and poverty cannot prevent compassion, humanity, true connection. Life lesson learned through fire. Education of heart and mind heals wounds deeper than material lack. Knowledge that every person carries light worth protecting. Life lesson that redemption comes not from power, but surrender to love. Dear viewers, this story teaches us timeless truths. Knowledge of suffering breeds empathy. Education empowers change. Life lesson that humanity shines brightest in darkness. Knowledge shared multiplies hope. Education of the soul matters most. Thank you for joining this journey on Crimson Romance Stories. If this tale touched you, if it stirred thoughts on love's power across divides, please subscribe, like, and share our channel to enjoy more engaging videos every day. How did this story make you feel? Does it connect to real life, the ways love defies barriers, the importance of compassion amid struggle? Share your thoughts and emotions in the comments below. We read every one. Wishing you all good health, a joyful life, and daily peace. Goodbye for now. See you in the next video.